what jumps out to you as still bettable for the NBA draft?
Yeah, so I gave you that Jeremiah Fears under 7.5 pick the other day. That's not out there anymore, but I am starting to like Fears to go in the top 5 at plus 300. There's just so much smoke about there being interest from Utah. They had him in for a one-on-one workout last Thursday. Apparently, he shot the lights out in an empty gym for what that's worth. But I do think that Austin Ainge being over there, a new fresh set of eyes, they're not going to really be married to the guards that they have there already, and Isaiah Collier and Keontae George, both players that have had flashes but just really have not been consistently impressive. I think maybe they're going to be looking at a guy like Fears, who maybe does offer the type of star upside that you're getting from a guy like Dylan Harper at 2, and they are not in a position to do that. So maybe they're going to go for the next best thing. That might be Fears, who I do believe there's a really good shot he goes 5 now.
I wanted to ask you of just going back to the Ace Bailey thing really quick. I mean, so this is all? Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of rumors swirling. You are a believer in the camp of this was kind of predetermined, where he wants to go to a specific location, not being Philadelphia, but a team that's bad enough where he kind of gets to be maybe the guy early and in a big enough market.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at Reed Shepherd last year was the 3rd pick, and he barely played. Rob Dillingham was the 8th pick, and he barely played because both of those guys were on teams that were looking to compete. The Rockets were 2nd in the West. The Timberwolves went to the conference finals. Not a lot of room for 18-year-olds to play through mistakes. And so, to me, based off of what I'm hearing, and just even my own thought process, Bailey's 18, one of the younger players in the draft. If he goes to Philly, which you have to imagine they're in win-now mode, and then even with the injury to Tyrese Halliburton yesterday, the East is missing Tatum, Damian Lillard, and Halliburton. So a team like Philadelphia is probably going to really think that they have a shot at competing for a title next year. So are you really going to let an 18-year-old play through mistakes? So if you go to Washington, you know that you're going to probably play 30 minutes per game. You take a couple of bad shots, you miss an assignment on defense, you're still going to be able to play. So I think this is all just a strategic play to put him in the best situation to where he can get the second contract. And realistically, that's what it's about. Everyone may think it's about winning early, but you want to get that second contract, which could be worth $200-300 million. So I think this is what the play is all about.
Yeah, I mean, the one with that is that there have been so many links of Fears going to Brooklyn at 8 that I felt that if teams want him, they're going to have to jump Brooklyn. And it's really as simple as that. I think he's going to go 7 or sooner. I do think that a lot of front offices, just based on what I've been reading, I don't have sources or anything, they believe that if you don't get Dylan Harper, potentially the best on-ball creator that you can get is Jeremiah Fears, and he's a player that maybe has, long-term potential as a franchise player at the guard position. So I think the teams are going to want to jump Brooklyn. So I do say if you could see a 7.5 at any point this week, I would definitely jump on the under there. Other than that, maybe you do get, Fears to go to the Nets. Maybe they'll move up themselves. So I'd be keeping an eye on those two things this week.
Any key storylines or even bets that stood out to you here early?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest situations to monitor is, Cooper Flagg is going 1st overall. If he doesn't, I won't even know. I need to change career fields at that point. It also looks like Dylan Harper's he was a minus 9,000 favorite to go 2nd when I looked the other day. So he's probably there. Then you've got just a huge chasm. There's so many possibilities from 3 to 10. The Ace Bailey story is one of the biggest stories right now, refusing to show up to workouts. Where is he going to fall to? Is Con Knippel, where's he going to move up to? Do you like Trey Johnson? Do you like Kasparis from Illinois? Are you going to take a risk on an Igor Demon, who's this high ceiling but low floor player? What about Derik Queen? There's a whole bunch of players, and you can see this reflected in the odds values, that are basically interchangeable. And I know you're supposed to draft the best player available, but in the event that one team doesn't and they go off of fit, I think that could start a chain reaction as well. So all in all, I would say I'm kind of avoiding that middle 10 area because I think it's really just going to be kind of a crapshoot by the end of the day.
Let's just go through this 1 through 5 and where you think this is going to fall right now. Obviously, Dallas with Cooper Flagg at the very top. But the big thing we've heard is that Ace Bailey from Rutgers
is not working out for anybody. And this has caused a little bit of confusion at the top of the draft. So how does this go? Trades, barring trades, which obviously would throw everything into, sort of confusion. But after the Mavericks, Spurs, Sixers, Hornets, Jazz. How do you think this shakes out, Raphael?
So I think that obviously Cooper Flagg is going number one. I think the San Antonio Spurs are going to take Dylan Harper, best player available. The third best player in this draft, in my opinion, is Ace Bailey, but Philadelphia would have to basically take the risk at taking him at 3, knowing that he hasn't worked out for them. But VJ Edgecombe has. So I would say VJ Edgecombe goes 4. Edgecombe goes 3. At 4, if they keep the pick, I think the Hornets go at Con Kneppel, but I do think that they can probably trade back a couple spots, pick up an asset, and get him. At number 5, I think it's between Trey Johnson and Jeremiah Fears at Utah. So I think they would probably go with Trey Johnson. And then at 6, I think the Washington Wizards go with Ace Bailey. And I think everything surrounding Ace, it's been a strategic play to put him in a position to where he goes to a team in a market that he wants to be in, and a team that gives him, time to develop and play through mistakes. And I think Washington and Brooklyn and New Orleans teams are picking 6, 7, and 8. I think those are the preferred choices.
Yeah, I have the under on Noah Essengue at 9.5. I just really think that teams are going to talk themselves into his tools. He's a 6'9", kind of power forward, small forward that can play everywhere on the floor. He's very athletic. He has gotten a lot better as a shooter, as a processor, just the kind of guy that, front offices tend to fall in love with. We're just talking about, big wings that can, impact games on both ends of the floor, that can slide up and down the lineup. I'd be really surprised if he falls in a draft where I think the consensus is that after 2, you lose some of the upside that you're getting in those first 2 picks. And it is pretty important to me, at least right now, that the Raptors are picking 9. And that is the type of player that Masai Ujiri is, tend to fall in love with in his career. Just these, toolsy players with tremendous upside that they can develop and get in there and potentially turn into a star because they're not confident, that stars are going to want to go to Toronto. So I'd be really surprised if Essengue falls by 9 and Toronto still has that pick. I mean, there is a chance that they do trade that pick to Phoenix. It sounds like they're in, the conversations for Durant, but I could also see Essengue going a little bit earlier too.
There was a stretch for like 3 or 4 years where they were actually making good picks in the draft. It was when they were really bad at the tail end of Kobe's career. In 2014, they took Julius Randle. In 2016, they took Brandon Ingram. They took Zubac that same year. In 2017, Lonzo Ball. I can remember vividly back then, it's like people were screaming from the mountaintops, these players stink. You missed it on all of them. And what happened as soon as they left and went to a different team? They immediately developed. And what did the Dodgers do every single year and seemingly for like the last, 3 or 4 decades? They not only add superstars, but they develop young talent, and they always have like young prospects. And that to me is where I think the rest of the league should be scared.
Well, and they found Max Muncy off the scrap heap. They found Justin Turner off the scrap heap. They traded a pitcher for I'm blanking on his name, Chris Taylor, who helped win them a World Series. Like they are, not only are they able to go out and sign a Shohei Ohtani when they have that opportunity, not only do they have the prospects to trade for a Mookie Betts and then to sign him to a nice long extension, so you have him throughout his prime. They have that ability, but they also are run like a small market team that needs to unearth talent wherever they can find it. And that's the thing, that if the Lakers nailed that, if the Lakers are able to figure out a way to start doing that, where their veteran minimum signings start to produce more than last year, where you had Christian Wood never play for the Lakers, you had Cam Reddish be somebody who Lakers fans hoped would never play for the Lakers, you had all kinds of players over the years that signed these veteran minimum contracts, and it was always kind of rudderless how they found those guys. Now, if you do have a purpose and you do start to develop some of that youth, that not only that you draft, but also that you find, those are going to be market inefficiencies that are absolutely critical in this much more punitive CBA.
You think Derik Queen of Maryland falls out of the top 10?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
You do
I mean,
not.
there was a trade yesterday that kind of changed things with the Suns now picking at number 10. So that could have an impact. We know that Phoenix doesn't need any shooting guards. I mean, they have Bradley Beal and Devin Booker and Jalen Green. But they do need a big, but I don't think Queen falls out the top 10, even though he is somewhat polarizing. I've heard people tell me that they would take him in the top 5, and some just question his fit.